Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Dear learners and viewers, how are you doing all? Hope everything is pretty good. Anyway, this is Hafizur Rahman, Assistant Teacher English, Kamal City Girls High School. Today, I'm here in front of you to take an important class on transformation of sentence. Dear learners and viewers, transformation of sentence is very much important for the students of class 6 to intermediate. So, dear learners, if you do the class very attentively, I do believe you will be more benefited from this class. Okay, dear learners, no more talk, let's get started. Transformation of sentence. At first, you have to know what the transformation of sentence is. Transformation of sentence is one kind of sentence that is done without changing meaning. Dear learners, remember, in the transformation of sentence, always the structure will be changed, but the meaning will not be changed at all. That is called transformation of sentence. Now today I will take a class on important part of transformation of sentence, that is affirmative to negative, part 1. Dear learners and viewers, let's have a look on first rule or examples. Only or alone. If there is only or alone in any kind of affirmative sentence, then to make it into negative, you have to use none but, nothing but, or not more than instead of alone or only. Dear learners, now when you will use none but, nothing but, and not more than. Okay, dear learners, if the subject of any kind of imperative sentence indicates a person, then you have to use none but, and if the subject is thing or abstract ideas, you have to use nothing but, and if alone or only indicates a number, then you have to use not more than instead of only or alone. Dear learners, let's have a look on some important examples. The first examples: alone Mr. Khan is a rich man in our locality. You have to make it into negative. Okay, dear learners, now look at the example. Here the word alone indicates the subject Mr. Khan. Here the subject Mr. Khan is a person. So if the subject indicates a person, to make it into negative, you have to use none but instead of alone. Okay, none but Mr. Khan is a rich man in our locality. Okay, dear learners, instead of alone, we use here none but. In this way, you have to make it negative. Okay, and now let's go example number 2. Only books can give us knowledge. You have to make it into negative. Dear learners, here the word only indicates the subject books. Here the books is a thing. So to make it into negative, you have to use nothing but instead of only, because here the subject indicates a thing. So nothing but. Nothing but books can give us knowledge. Okay, in this way you have to make it into negative. Okay, dear learners, let's go example number 3. He is only 20. You have to make it into negative. Dear learners, here the word only indicates number 20. If only or alone indicates a number, then you have to use not more than to make it into negative instead of only. Okay, here he is not more than 20. Okay, in this way you have to make a negative sentence. Okay, dear learners, now let's have a look another rule or examples. Okay, must, have to, has to. Must, have to, has to. Cannot but or cannot help. Okay, dear learners, here must, have to, has to. If there is must, have to, has to in any kind of affirmative sentence, to make it into negative, you have to use cannot but or cannot help instead of must, have to or has to. Okay, dear learners, to better understand, I am giving some examples. The first examples, you must obey your parents. You have to make it into negative. Dear learners, look at the sentence. There is a moral auxiliary verb must here. So to make it into negative, you have to use cannot but. Only you have to use cannot but instead of must. You cannot but obey your parents. Dear learners, in this way you have to make this kind of affirmative sentence into negative. For better understanding, let's write another example. We have to do it. You have to make it into negative. Dear learners, here there is have to. Okay, so you have to make it into negative. Okay, instead of have to, now we use here cannot help to make it into negative. Cannot help doing it. Dear learners, look at this example. Here we use here cannot help. If you use cannot help instead of must, have to or has to, then you have to use ing. Okay, you have to use ing at the end of the second verb, second main verb. Here the main verb is do. Okay, when you will use cannot help, then you have to add ing after the second verb, because if there is two verbs in any kinds of sentence, then you have to use ing at the end of the second verb. For this reason here do becomes doing. Okay, in this way you have to make affirmative sentence into negative. I think all of you have understood very clearly, right? Okay, dear learners, now let's go another rules or examples. Both and not only but also. Okay, dear learners, now look at the another rule, that is both and. If there is both and in any kind of affirmative sentence, to make it into negative, you have to use not only. Instead of both, you have to use not only, and instead of and, you have to use but also. So let's have a look on some examples. The first examples, Mr. Robin is both a member and a teacher. You have to make it into negative. Look at the example. Here there is a word both and there is a word and you have to use not only instead of both, and you have to use but also instead of and. In this way you have to make it into negative. Mr. Robin is not only a member but also a teacher. Okay, dear learners, now let's go example number 2. He is both rich and honest. You have to make it into negative. Okay, dear learners, here we see the word both, and to make it into negative you have to use not only instead of both. Not only. Rich, and instead of and you have to use but also to make it into negative, but also honest. Okay, in this way you have to make it into negative, this kind of affirmative sentence. Okay, dear learners, no more today. In the next class we will do part 2. Until then, be good and be well. Thank you very much.